Alright everybody, let's end this franchise with Prom Night. I already reviewed this movie a few years ago, hated it, was very livid because this movie bored the shit out of me, and I was curious to go back to check it out again, see if I would like it more, and while I don't hate it, I still don't like it at all. So, yeah, I am not a fan of this movie. I think it's such a dull slasher. I think it's overrated. Yeah, it has Jamie Lee Curtis, but as a slasher, this movie is not scary. It's not entertaining to me. It's just very lackluster in every way imaginable. I just don't like it. This was directed by Paul Lynch, who would go on to direct Humongous in 1982, a horrible movie, and this was composed by two people, Carl Stitcher, who did Black Christmas, and I think like Deranged, or what was the other one? Death Dream, I think he did that one. And great composer, and Paul Zaza, who would do all the other Prom Night sequels, and he did Curtains. And the writers of this movie, you got two writers here, and one of them did Curtains, and the other one wrote The Changeling, which came out the same year. And of course, this stars Jamie Lee Curtis. She did this like right after Halloween. And then she also did Terror Train like the same year. And then she would do Halloween 2 and Road Games. And then she did The Fog also, can't forget about that. And then she kind of left horror for a while until like Halloween H2O. And this also has Leslie Nielsen, and that was pretty cool to see him in a role that isn't comedic at all. Like I'm used to seeing him like in Naked Gun and all those other movies, Airplane stuff. But this is more like Creepshow, where it's a more serious role. Although he's not the villain in this movie, he just plays the principal and the dad, and he's not really in the movie all that much. But it was cool to see him not play the same comedic character that I always see him do. One of the only few things I like about this movie is the score by Carl Stitcher and Paul Zaza. I think this is actually the best score in the entire franchise, and not counting the disco soundtrack, this movie is incredibly 70s. It's funny, like some movies that came out in 1980, they look and feel 80s. This one came out in 1980, and it is the most 70s looking movie I've ever seen in my life. You can tell it was filmed in the late 70s. You got disco, you got everyone has like an afro, and it just looks and feels, it's drenched in 70s atmosphere. But anyways, like I was saying, the score outside of the disco shit I liked. So, good stuff there. And Jamie Lee Curtis, having her in here, this is the hottest she's ever looked in these early 80s slashers that she did, Terror Train, all the ones I mentioned. Like, this is the most beautiful she's looked. And I like her. She's a good actress, and, the acting in this movie overall is not that bad. It's above average for a slasher, although the mom, when she finds her daughter dead in the opening, I thought that was a cringy performance.
They call me Slick.
I can see why. How old are you, Slick?
Old enough.
I've heard about guys like you running over girls on the sidewalk.
For some girls, if they're good looking, I give them a ride.
And I like the character of Slick. He's very unconventional. He's not a typical character that you would see in these slashers. He gets the girl, takes her to prom. He's very short and pudgy, and he's very confident. I like him. I like his attitude, and he's just a fun character. He's the only one that stands out in this movie to me. But outside of that, there's nothing else I really like about this movie. First up, I think the cinematography in this movie is terrible. This movie looks ugly. It is one of the ugliest movies I've seen. There's so many blurry shots in the movie. It just looks awful. The phone calls is something that's iconic to this movie. Everyone points it out and talks about it like they love it. I don't. I think it's just completely thrown in, and it makes no sense why the character is even doing it. Why would he need to call these people that he knows are going to prom? The killer is going to kill these people whether he calls them or not, so it just feels pointless by the end of the day.
Hello?
Jude,
Yes?
can you come out to play tonight?
Another thing that just feels completely thrown in, and I looked into it, and it was thrown in last second in production, is the whole scapegoat subplot that gets thrown away a little too early by the end of the movie. Like, oh, it's not him. Like, he's this scapegoat, the guy who gets pinned for the murder of this little girl in the opening. They use that as like a red herring throughout the film, but then at some point they reveal that it's not that person, a little too early if you ask me, and it's not going to be him that's killing. You just know it. It's too obvious. Another thing I don't like about this movie is the fact that it feels PG almost, and it was going to be PG, and they had to try to insert some blood here just to fucking get that R rating. And like the kills, uneventful, unmemorable, and goreless, except, if you want to count a decapitation as gore, I don't, unless there's like excessive blood shooting out the neck hole like a geyser, but that's not what we see here. It's goreless, it's titless, there's no nudity. You got a shower locker room scene where you could have had some, there's an opportunity right there to have some TNA, but they just don't do it. And there's like hardly any like killer POV in the movie. There's like no stalking, there's no impending doom except for the phone calls, which I don't like because it just felt pointless, and why is he doing it? And the voice was just generic, the generic creepy soft whisper voice, and the dialogue there wasn't scary to me at all. Like they would just hang up within 3 seconds, so it was like there was no time there to actually try to build some suspense in those phone calls. They don't go full on like Black Christmas and go real creepy and bone chilling. Like the phone calls weren't working for me. They should have had more stalking. They should have had the prom night start way sooner. That way we could get to the kills a bit quicker. And I don't like the killer in the movie. Not only did I predict who it was the minute I saw him as a kid, I just didn't like the look of him. I don't like the way he runs. He runs weird. It's laughable, and I just don't like him as a killer. Don't like the look. He just looks like a guy breaking into a building to steal jewelry. Like he just looks like a robber. So final thoughts, I just think this movie is dull as hell. I don't like the characters. They're all bland except for Slick. I don't like the kills. I don't like the killer. I don't like almost anything about this. It has Jamie Lee Curtis, yeah, but that doesn't make it a great movie automatically, but it seems like it does in other people's eyes. They just blow this movie way too much. It's not great. It's just average at best. So when it comes to Prom Night, I just can't recommend this. I think it's incredibly dull and just has nothing going for it except for one kill and Jamie Lee Curtis. So to me, this movie is wasted time. So this movie opens up with these kids playing hide and go kill. What is this game? I've never heard of it. And like they find her and they're just yelling kill, kill, kill. It's like, you found her, game over, right? No, they just want to keep chasing her through the building, and she looks legit terrified, like she thinks they're going to kill her. I guess she's right. And she falls out the window, and I guess a shard of glass like hits her throat, and that's what kills her. And that's why the killer later on in the movie grabs the shard of glass, and that's why he's using that as the weapon. And he even like stabs that picture of the one girl in the neck, just because that's how his sister died. And when I saw that kid in the striped shirt, and I saw the other girls wearing the same shirt, I was like, okay, this girl dies. Whoever that kid was wearing the same shirt, that's the killer. And that's who ends up being the killer. But meanwhile, they're trying to make you think it was this guy who was blamed for the murder, who found the body, some groundskeeper dude or someone who I guess had a record already. He was like a sex offender, and they just had him be the scapegoat. They arrested him, and then he breaks out 6 years later, coincidentally at the same time that, the brother wants to start killing. So it's just a convenience that when he decides to start killing, it lines up when this guy breaks out. Like it's not like he started killing because this guy broke out. Like, oh, I'll use that. I'll start killing and I'll blame him. Like those two things are their own separate things. They're not connected in any way story-wise. The narrative isn't like, oh, he's killing to blame him once again. It's not that at all. It's just filler. All this scapegoat shit. It just feels like filler. And yeah, I already talked about the mom's reaction to her daughter's dead body. I thought that was really cringy. And then we got the phone calls. Why are the phone calls being done? Like every time he calls somebody, he scratches their name. But then whether they pick up the phone or not, he scratches their name off anyways. The one chick picks up, you like to play games, Wendy. And then, scratch. And then he calls the one dude, I don't know his name. But he doesn't pick up the phone. And he's like, all right, scratch. It's like it doesn't matter if they pick up the phone, he's going to scratch their name off anyways. Why is he calling them? And that guy is not Alex, the killer. All right, that is not Alex. That is the film cheating you. Or B, it really is not supposed to be Alex. Who is this guy calling them? It's not Alex. Does not look like, we see part of his face. That is not Alex. And we even see his hand. It's not Alex's hands. The voice doesn't sound like a voice that Alex could make. It's not Alex. It can't be. So maybe it is the scapegoat guy, although they say his face is all burnt and shit, so it can't be him. Anyways, so yeah, then this girl, she gets in the van with a stranger. She doesn't recognize him, but then later on, he's at their school, like he goes there. So how does she not recognize him? Like, you know everybody at your school, in your grade especially. Like, you know all their faces. You memorize all their names by the time you get to high school. She doesn't recognize him, but he's going to her school, but who the fuck gets in a stranger's van, especially a minivan? Oh my gosh. But he's so slick. He calls himself slick. But why is it she taking the bus? I mean, whatever. And so then, after all that shit, the scapegoat breaks out. He killed a nurse, and then we get the line, "It's not who you go with, it's who takes you home." It's who takes you home. That line in all 4 movies. And so then, we meet the unibrow bully. Come on, just shave it off already. You look like you're 30 years old. All the teenagers in this movie look like they're at least 25. But that's basically all 80s movies for you. And Alex is one hell of a fighter. When he's fighting the unibrow dude and the other guy in the cafeteria, he's like dodging all their punches and he's throwing them over tables. Like, he's a good fighter for a scrawny looking dude. And so yeah, and then this one chick just randomly moons Sykes, the groundskeeper dude, the cliche, creep who works at the school. Just a cliche character, but this is probably, around the time when that was becoming a trope. But why does she moon him? It was just so random and thrown in. There's your nudity, but I don't count that. Like that was like the top half of her ass, just like the crack. Why is she mooning that guy? And that guy was in Jason X. He was the guy who was like doing the FaceTime phone call. Is that Jason Voorhees you got there? Talking about how DVDs are shit. Something like that. Whatever. So, yeah. And then they know who's going to be prom queen and prom king way before the prom. Since when was that a thing? I thought that was always a surprise. You go to prom and they like vote and shit, and then they announce it and it's like, oh my gosh, I won. But in this one, it's like, nope, you're prom queen, you're prom king. We're going to, rehearse how you're going to go down the aisle and blah, blah, blah. So I thought that was weird. And then a little clue that Alex is the killer is when he says to Jamie Lee Curtis, like, oh, I smell like the ladies' room. Because obviously he was in the ladies' room earlier as the killer, breaking the mirror and shit. So I thought that was a nice little clue. And then, yeah, we get the whole, 5-minute, what feels like 10 minutes prom night dance sequence. That's cringy as hell. Finally, we're over an hour into the movie, and this girl gets her throat slit in slow motion, off camera. It's like a close-up shot of her eyes, and she's being, killed beneath frame. And the killer just keeps yelling, "Now!" I don't get that. I don't understand why he's yelling now. Is he answering a question that was never asked? Like, when am I gonna die? Now! Now! Why? He says now in every single kill. So I don't know what question he's answering. Or I don't know what the fuck's going on there. And then, after a couple of murders, the detective who's at the prom keeping an eye out on, on the kids, he gets word that the killer was caught, or, who they think is the killer was caught. So therefore, they all leave, and we still got, a couple more victims here. We got a final chase coming. Like, that reveal was a little too early, if you ask me. So we get the couple who lose their virginity in the back of the van. I can relate. And after they lose their virginity, they're like, oh, let's go fuck again on, the bluffs. Let's go fuck again. So they're just horny and happy that they just want to keep fucking. And they reuse, a lot of POV shots, the same POV shot, again and again and again in this scene. And she gets killed, very lame, off camera, now. When's my life going to be over? Now. And then the guy starts driving in circles, like legit circles again and again and again. Where is he going? And why is the school right next to a cliff? And of course, just like all cars back in the day, when this car crashes, it explodes on impact. So that's just ridiculous. And so the one guy, he gets knocked out very easily by one simple pimp slap, just and then he's out cold. And then, so this is a case of mistaken identity. The killer thinks that's the guy who just got knocked out, but it's not. It's Lou. Clearly, come on. And then he chops his head off, rolls on stage. That's the best scene in the movie. I mean, outside of the silliness of the van scene, which I think is just funny and stupid, but this is the best kill of the movie and one of the standout scenes. And so we get this very long final chase. I guess it's not the final chase, but Wendy, she's being chased throughout the school, and I guess the killer has dozens and dozens of chains and padlocks. He's locking every door so she can't get back to the gymnasium. But How did he do that? And why not just use that chain on the bathroom door to lock her right then and there, you know? Just saying. But yeah, she gets killed off camera. She's the main bitch that you want to see get killed, and she gets killed off camera. So then we get this, final confrontation between the killer and, Jamie Lee Curtis and her date, and the choreography there is poor. Like, there is a moment where he goes to swing at the guy, and he stops mid-swing for like a whole second because he's waiting for Jamie Lee Curtis to like grab him and stop him. It's hilarious. Watch it again. And then she like nicks him on the head with the axe, like barely a bump on his head, and that kills him. Like a couple minutes later, he bleeds out, and there's like not even a lot of blood there. They take off his mask, and it looks like he's wearing makeup. Why is he wearing makeup? He clearly has like lipstick smudged all over his face, and it looks like he has like some makeup here on his cheek. Looks like he's made up like a doll. Why? It feels like there was a deleted scene at some point. I don't know. Were they gonna flash back to him putting makeup on? Like he's just crazy now? Like I don't know. Why is he wearing makeup? Is he wearing makeup? How is he dying? There was like no attempt to make it look like what she did to him was fatal. Like you just see like a little bit of blood on his temple, but there's no like gash, there's no wound, there's no like blood just constantly oozing out of his head. It's just bad makeup effects. This whole movie is unimpressive when it comes to makeup. There's, they used the real head for the severed head, so that was a smart decision because I'm sure if they made a fake head, it would have looked incredibly fake. But instead, they did the whole, magic trick where they just cut a hole, they stick the real actor's head through. So that was a smart decision there. But yeah, just how he dies, lame. Like I think it's a lame ending. The whole movie to me is kind of lame. I don't like it. So there you go. That's the end of the movie. Killer caught. His motivation is, they killed our sister, and now I'm getting revenge. Simple stuff. Hockey Mask Award for Best Character in this movie for me was Slick, the short, pudgy guy who gets the girl. And the Hanky Award for Worst Character in this movie is Wendy, the one who makes them all keep it a secret and tries to sabotage prom night. And the hottest chick in this movie is Jamie Lee Curtis playing Kim in here. And the Clapper Award for Best scene in this movie will go to the couple in the van, driving in circles, falling off the cliffs, blowing up. I thought all that stuff was really silly. And the Hat Award for Best Kill is Lou, the bully, the unibrow dude who gets his head chopped off. And the Mr. Twig Award for Worst Kill in this movie will go to Wendy, the girl who you want to see get killed, but it's a complete cutaway. And even leading up to her death, the way it's shot and put together, it was just jarring. So those are my thoughts on Prom Night. Still not a fan. I'm sure I'm going to get some dislikes for not liking this movie, but I don't care. Just giving you my honest opinion, I do not like it. So there you go, Prom Night. I'm never watching this again, but what are your thoughts on this movie? Why do you like it so much? Let me know in the comments below. Convince me that's great. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, Auf Wiedersehen.